Hi and welcome to my workshop. This video is a condensed version of my 8-part series, The Reclaimed Oil Drum Table. This video will take you through the process of how I made this table using reclaimed scaffold boards. I picked up these scaffold boards from my local reclamation yard. They're pretty rough, as you can imagine. The first job is to prepare the boards by removing the metal banding from both ends. The metal banding came off really easy using a flat crowbar and a hammer. I was a bit fussy making sure I picked up all the nails, as the last thing I wanted was for one of them to go into one of my car tyres on the drive. It's very important to remove all the nails from the boards. There were some in the faces of the boards, and any nails left would damage the blade on my planer thicknesser. I'm using my miter saw to cut the boards to length to make it easier for me to work with them on the planer thicknesser. My planer thicknesser is a big old lump, weighing in at 390 kilos, approximately 860 pounds. One job on my list of things to do is to make a mobile base for my planer thicknesser. Here I am planing one side of the boards to use as a reference face, after which I'll run them through the thicknesser. As these boards are very rough, I plane both sides once, have a look at them, and then see which one I want to work on to get flat first. I check the boards are nice and flat with a straight edge. So the next step is to plane a reference edge, after which I'll have then one face and one edge that are flat and true and square to each other. I'm putting a pencil mark on just so I know which are my reference faces. Now I've prepped one edge and one face, they're ready to run through the thicknesser. To do this, I need to reconfigure the machine for thicknessing. It's very easy to reconfigure this machine, and that's why I love it so much. I need to run each board through the thicknesser, and every time I run it through I need to adjust the height of the table by a few millimetres to take off more wood. If I try and take off too much wood in one go, the machine will stall. It's now over to the table saw to rip the boards down to the same width by removing the unplaned edge. I'm running the edge that I planed on the thicknesser against the fence. Having ripped the boards to width, I now need to clean up the sawn edge by running it through the planer. Now it's on to the glue up. I only have a small workshop and space is a premium, so I have a collapsible workbench that I put up when I need to. Out come my heavy steel sash clamps, which are a bit of a lump. The clamps are longer than my workbench, and as such they keep falling over, so what I do is I get a scrap piece of wood and then I screw the clamps to this piece of wood, and that keeps them from falling over. Makes life a lot easier. Now it's time to lay the boards out on the clamps to To do this, I mark the centre of each board so I can align them with each other.
Alright, thanks! 65, 67.
Now the boards are all laid out, it's now time for glue up. So applying a nice coat of glue to each edge. Now we've applied the glue, we can now clamp the boards together, applying some extra clamps along the top. I left them to dry overnight, so it's now time to remove the clamps. When I was gluing up, I was able to wipe the excess glue from the top, but on the underside there's glue residue there which I'm just scraping as much off as I can before I then go on to sand the top. It's now time to cut the circle out of the board. I'm using 2 trestles as a platform to work off. The board is approximately 1.3 metres, 4 feet in diameter, and it's rather heavy. Here I am just marking the centre of the board, which is where I'll attach the jig. I made the router jig out of some 6mm MDF. I'm fixing it to the centre of the table using a screw. I'm not tightening it too tight as I need to rotate the router around the table. The router jig is now attached and I'm ready to cut out the tabletop. I'll be rotating the router around the table multiple times to cut through the 50mm thick top. I'll be dropping the router 5mm approximately each time until I cut through the entire top.
Okay, back to the start. So I'm going to lower it down even more and go again.
So it's complete. A 1.2 metre, approximately 4 foot circle cut out of the board. Now on to sanding the top using my Mercaderos random orbital sander. I'll be going through the grits 80, 120, 180, 240 and 320. So now I've sanded the top, I can round over, de-arris the edges using my cheap Katsu router and a 6.3mm bit. The Katsu router is a really handy machine for this job. It's a clone of the Makita router, I think. It's very cheap at approximately £25. Yeah. I'm quickly going around with some sandpaper to clean over the round over, especially where there's end grain.
It's quite heavy.
So now it's the painstaking job of removing all the grit and grime from the cracks. These have been on a building site and probably full of sand and cement. I contemplated filling the cracks with epoxy, but I've not worked with epoxy and had no experience. I've also considered putting some bow ties to tie the cracks together, but again, not done that. The tops are all sanded, gone through the grits, and they're ready for the final finish. I'm applying a coat of spirit stain dye. I need to work quickly as it dries very fast and can leave an uneven coat. However, should that happen, it can easily be sanded. I decided to make a cross that will locate the table inside the oil drum. 49.5. I'll be using half lap joints to fix the pieces together. Okay, we'll just find the centre of these so we can create the lap joints. They've got to come out. Using the depth stop on the miter saw, it's easy to make multiple cuts, removing all the wood. There we go. There we go, guys. Half lap joints using my Festal. Brilliant. A little bit of slack so I can get it in easy. I'm going to be attaching this to the tabletop using some coach bolts, so I just need to mark the locations and drill some holes. Starting with a larger diameter hole that will then ensure the head of the coach bolt is below the surface. Then moving on to a clearance hole for the bolt. A quick sand and they'll be ready for fitting. Drilling pilot holes in the table ready for the bolts. A little bit of glue to hold the lap joints together. Using my Katsu router to round over the edges. And a coat of stain dye. All done and ready for the final finish, using a tack cloth to make sure all the dust is removed. Applying 2 coats of hard wax oil for the final finish, using a foam brush. Well guys, that's the end of my project, the oil drum tabletop. I've had some great fun doing this project and thanks for coming along on the journey. I look forward to welcoming you back to the workshop soon when I'll be starting my next project.